Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, bringing you podcast number 100 here at the Tavern, presented by HeroTaku.com. Yes, patrons, it has happened. We have reached our 100th podcast here at the Onyx Tavern. I just want to thank everybody who's been able to make the Tavern a success, everybody that has listened, everybody that's subscribed, everybody that's commented, everybody who's ever done anything, and there's so many of you guys out there named. I just want to thank you for everything that you've done to help make the Onyx Tavern a success. That being said, after all the hardships that we've gone through here and the problems and everything's well documented, at least on my end, I really wanted to give you guys, the patrons of the Tavern, something really special for this 100th episode. And today, I'd like to think that I've succeeded, and I really hope you guys enjoy this. Because we have a first here at the Onyx Tavern. One, it's an interview. I actually have an interview for you guys, an exclusive interview at that, with a former writer of Power Rangers, Mr. Kevin Rubio. For those of you who don't know him, he was the co-writer of He Ain't Heavy Metal, He's My Brother from Power Rangers Super Samurai. I was able to get a hold of him after months of trying, which is not Mr. Rubio's fault. It is definitely Saban Brands for not helping me at all in this endeavor and a number of other issues, but that's beyond that. But I was able to sit down and talk with him regarding the script that he co-wrote for Power Rangers Super Samurai. And before we kind of get to that interview, let me kind of give you guys a background on who Mr. Rubio is, what his work involves, before we actually talk to him. So I say he's the co-writer, but he did go ahead and work for Fox Kids Network at the time that Power Rangers first came onto the air. Did a lot of things for Fox back in the day. He is probably best well known for his 1997 short film Troops, which I will have a link to that video down in the comments section. Basically, think of it as cops meet stormtroopers. Very hilarious, real classic, something that I watched when I was younger, of course. And of course, Mr. Rubio has done many other things. He's worked in musical theater. He's done a lot of stage productions out there. He's also a lyricist and writes a lot of songs. Particularly, he has done some music for My Little Pony, so you bronies out there may recognize him. But for those of you who are Star Wars fans as well, he is a member of the 501st Legion, wrote Dark Horse Star Wars Tales, Tag and Bink, and one episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars. And he is the inaugural winner of the Pioneer Award at the first official Star Wars Fan Film Awards in 2002. And of course, and that was for his work on Troops. And most recently, he is a writer for Ben 10 Omniverse. So, Mr. Rubio, I'm going to go ahead and say is probably an expert on the Hollywood scene and an expert on Star Wars. But for our purposes, we are talking about Power Rangers and that particular episode. So, here is the interview with Mr. Rubio. And patrons, today we are joined with a very special guest here at the Onyx Tavern, Mr. Kevin Rubio, the writer of the Power Rangers Super Samurai episode, He Ain't Heavy Metal, He's My Brother. Mr. Rubio, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, sir. I'm sure the weather
I think I'm the co-writer on that one, though.
Yes. That was what I was going to get into. You co-wrote this episode with David McDermott, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, I just want to kind of let my patrons and fans here know really about the process that went into this episode, and anything you can go ahead and recollect about the episode to kind of give us an inside perspective on, the characters and what you wanted to say in the episode.
I'll do my best.
Oh, thank you. But I first want to know, how did you get involved with writing this episode?
If I remember it correctly, either David called me or James Mastrantonio called me, and it was because I had written several songs for My Little Pony.
Okay.
And because this was a musical episode, I was recommended to do this one, and I did one more Power Rangers, but I can't remember the order. So I don't know if this one came first, and and then I did the second Power Rangers, or if it was the other way around.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but the only writing credit I found was for this particular episode. But you actually did write another episode.
Yeah, I've done two.
Okay.
And again, you'll forgive me because it's been so long. Unless they, no, I did two. Yeah.
Okay. Well, for whatever reason, none of my research found other episodes for you, but we'll
I
talk
think
about.
it was two different incarnations. I mean, the show has been going on for 20 years,
Absolutely.
and I worked at Fox Kids back in '94
Okay.
as I was doing animation and character design then, but I was there when we acquired Power Rangers.
Absolutely, and that was actually into my next question. So you were kind of around with Power Rangers in your midst from the beginning. So what is your knowledge of Power Rangers? Even at that time, and when you went into writing this episode.
Well, in '94, my knowledge of Power Rangers was that I had seen the original incarnation. Only it played out on a midnight TV show. And they played the entire Japanese version of it, but it was called The Amazing Dyna Kids, and
Yes.
it was kind of a "What's Up, Tiger Lily," and so in other words, they redubbed it, but it was not a serious piece. It was all done for comedic effect, and so that's what I knew of it when it came to Fox Kids, and looking at the show, the way they were packaging it, I've told former Fox Kids president Margaret Lesh this many times. I said, well, if I was president, we would be broke because I would take one look at this thing and say, what the hell are you thinking of?
Okay, so and so when you actually went in to write the episode, obviously you didn't need to know 20 years of Power Rangers history to write a single episode. But what was kind of your knowledge of it at that point?
Not very much. They give you you have a basic story structure that's set out by the showrunners, or in this case, the story editors, and they set out the guidelines. You're given the footage that they will be using, and basically just said, well, we've got two fight scenes. They take place in these locations. We're using villain A, villain B, and using that you basically have to come up with the connective tissue. And you only have about 10 pages, so that's probably the biggest challenge. That and the tedium of matching it to the time codes.
Okay.
Because you do have to. That is pretty much the most tedious and for me personally annoying part is sitting there and rocking video back and forth and making time code in and out notations.
So when you were writing the script, you had to be aware of how long the episode essentially is going to be and where the Japanese footage would be in it. Is that correct?
Yes, and you also have to reference the footage via time code when you're cutting in and cutting out.
I see, and that would be, of course, for the editor.
Yes, and for the production overall.
Okay.
So that, I mean, if your source material that you're using takes place in a quarry, the production company has to know that, so that when they shoot their end of it, they're not shooting in an office building.
Okay.
They got to know. Oh, okay. When we cut to the Japanese footage, we're we're in a fast food restaurant, so we can't start the Australian footage by being on the beach, that kind of a thing.
Okay, then.
If that
Uh,
makes sense.
oh, absolutely. Now, since this episode was co-written, how much of this was actually you, and how much was David, and how that collaboration actually work?
Well, sometimes it works differently. Sometimes I'll take Act One and he'll take Act Two, and then we'll switch off. David is a far better writer than I, and really good with structure. And he, at one point, was the executive in charge of Power Rangers at Fox Kids. So, safe to say, he probably knows more about it than most people. Um, yeah, the way I remember it is that I took one act and he took the other act, and then we switched off. But when I'm rewriting his act, there's not a lot to rewrite. It's
And
it's basically just if I can plus it in any way, I try to. Whereas I'm sure if he takes my material, he finds many ways to rewrite it.
now, before we actually get into talking about the episode itself, could you take us into what the Power Rangers writing room is like in general, and how does that differ from, say, other projects and other writing staffs that you've been on?
I I I couldn't take you into the Power Ranger room per se because it's kind of nebulous. We don't sit around a table with 20 people and come up with stories. Although for this particular iteration of the Power Rangers, all of the writers chosen did come in for one meeting where we were essentially given the layout of how the two seasons would go, the direction, and what two Power Ranger shows they would be using footage from. And I don't recall how many months it took for the story editors to actually create a cohesive story, but as I remember it, they used two different iterations of the Japanese show, and the show that had the best fighting had the worst storylines, and vice versa. The ones that had the best storylines had the worst fight choreography, and because the costumes and the Zords changed between those two particular seasons, they had a tough time wrapping their heads around a story that would explain all of that, but managed to do that, to figure something out eventually. And that's when we were all brought in, and basically told the story that they had set up, all culminating, I think, with what was the Power Rangers 20th anniversary. But you'll forgive me because I only when it comes to Power Rangers, I watch what I need to in order to get the script done. I'm not sitting in front of the TV consuming every episode.
Absolutely. Some of us are nerds, and some of us, are not, and that's fine. But the good thing is you have a nerd like me to where I completely understand what you mean and all that. And in terms of the particular story that you wrote, what was kind of the genesis for that? Was it an idea that you and David came up with? Was it an assignment that you were given?
No,
Yeah.
this was an assignment. We were told, this is, well, they want the Power Rangers to do some music, and I think it was because of it was influenced by Glee.
Okay.
And I'm not 100% certain on this, but I think Avi Arad and Chaim Saban initially started in the industry with music, and doing either acquiring the rights to the Archies or producing it. and that's the musical group, not the Riverdale characters. Uh, Although I think they're one and the same. But they wanted to get back to that, and and try to capitalize like everybody off of a trend that was happening with shows doing music. I think at that time you had Glee, but then you also had I think Grey's Anatomy did a musical episode. It seems like everybody was doing a musical episode of something. So the Power Rangers, wanted to do that as well. And because I had written lyrics for several Pony shows, My Little Pony episodes, I was recommended.
Okay, and of course that episode does feature a lot of music, from beginning to end, and I dare say the music really kind of takes over the episode as opposed to any particular plot or action.
Yeah.
And
that was actually even that left us with even less pages to actually form a cohesive story. I think if you take out the musical interludes, we probably had 7 pages to write a story out of 35.
And of course, I'm curious with the story because the story focuses on Mia, the Pink Ranger, and her somewhat estranged brother Terry. What was kind of the idea of what did you guys want to say with this relationship between brother and sister?
I never got that deep. James just said, "Here's the setup." So it was basically just a set of circumstances, and make the dialogue work. It's not in this case, as with I don't want to say a lot of Power Rangers, but at least with the Power Ranger episodes that I have watched. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're not breaking new ground in television. It's just pretty much a paint by the numbers.
Okay, because to be honest, I study a lot of film. That's what I'm in school for at the moment, and we're always taught to, look for the deeper meaning. What's the writer trying to go ahead and say? And a lot of writers, they don't really intend anything. They just go ahead and write, and we as the audience kind of make stuff up. And I get the feeling that, again, you were brought in primarily for the music, so any story we bring from Terry and Mia isn't true intention from you, I take it.
There is no there is no deep meaning behind this other than this was an assignment and I got paid.
and of course there's nothing wrong with that. I know how the business works, so the honesty is very important, and I appreciate the honesty on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's not to say that I took the assignment lightly, but it's not Shakespeare.
Now, I do want to go ahead and ask this question as well, because as you said, one of the difficulties she has with the time codes, again, everything to work with each other. And of course, one of the unique things about Power Rangers is it is based off of a Japanese television show.
Yeah.
Now, the opening credits, I rewatched the episode last night in preparation, does give the original writer of the Japanese episode, Yasuko Kobayashi, credit in there, but the episode has nothing to actually do with that original episode. So my question is that even though it's kind of given credit, did you have to watch the Shinkanger, the Japanese version? What did you actually have to watch other than the action bits?
We watched the episodes. We were given every single episode. In fact, I had every single episode on my computer. I think up until last year, and I just needed to clear space. So, but for the whatever the 2 seasons were comprised of, I think maybe 52 episodes. I had on my hard drive.
So I guess what I'm really curious about, because actually that episode from the Japanese version is my favorite of that particular show. And I love the story about an estranged daughter and mother reconnecting. And of course, the American version has no connection to that whatsoever. Was there any thought of going in that direction, or was it like we're just going to come up with something completely new? Because a lot of the criticism of samurai in general is you take the Japanese scripts, put them through Google Translate, and you have a samurai episode. But this is one of the rare instances it's not actually based off of the Japanese source material really in any way.
No, there was no thought to take it in any other direction than the direction that we took it.
Which again was with the musical.
Yes.
Okay.
And the brother sister relationship. But speaking as a person that's also been an executive producer of a repurposed Japanese anime show, it boils down to, what's the purpose and what's the mission statement for any particular show you're doing. I translated and wrote the first 7 episodes of GTO for Tokyo Pop, and while I was handed the Google Translate, although there was no Google back then, I was handed the Japanese translations of the show and did as literal a translation as I could. You're trying to serve 2 masters. One, the story and getting across the translation as best as possible, but also the lip flap and the syllables. And sometimes, certain words and ideas don't work simply because of the flapping of the mouths. So you have to sit there with what was then a VCR and rock and roll it back and forth and try different sentences, out loud as their mouths are moving to see, 1, if the syllable count will work, and 2, if the intent you're trying to get across will work. And then sometimes you get lucky, like the show that I did, which was Duel Masters. Not the most recent incarnation, but the 2003 incarnation, where Hasbro basically told me, throw out everything and just do whatever show you want to do. You can use the footage. You don't have to use the stories. The only thing we're trying to get across is the gameplay. As long as the gameplay is correct, then we don't care what type of a story you come up with. And in that case, I didn't even have to worry about lip flap because I just wrote scripts and then we reanimated our own lip flapping.
But in the case of Power Rangers, since they're all wearing helmets and the villains really don't have any lips, makes it much easier on you, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, that in that case you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
Okay.
And that makes it ideal. That particular Power Rangers, the ideal for that kind of dialogue. You just know that when a fight, you're going to have to come up with certain catchy phrases, or snappy comebacks, and just try not to repeat something that's already been done in the last 20 years, which can be a little harder than you would imagine.
Absolutely, and as writing with continuity and all that, I'm sure that's always some sort of burden. But with this, there wasn't too much continuity that I think burdened you in the process.
No.
And I want to thank you for all the insights because it's been very enlightening and all that. But what would you say was your overall experience with Power Rangers, and would you ever come back to write for the series again, whether it be on assignment or you get to craft your own story?
Oh, sure. No, I'm always open to it, and I mean, the people that I work with are great. So it's not while the work is tedious and sometimes you're banging your head against the wall and wishing you didn't have to pay attention to edge numbers and time code. Both Jameses and Dave and everybody whom I dealt with at Power Rangers are great people, and I'd work with them anytime.
Great, great. Well, I definitely hope that we get to see you in the future. I mean, I'm very familiar with your work, and I love Troops, if I may say. And I would love to see like have more than an assignment and really just write you, I guess.
Well, my last episode of Ben 10 aired this morning, so.
Unfortunately, I don't follow Ben 10. I'm pretty much exclusively Power Rangers and sometimes Star Wars. Once episode 7 comes out.
You gotta open up your universe, man.
Absolutely.
Experience new things, especially if you're a filmmaker.
Oh, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I follow a lot of things. But for today's discussion, I'm glad we got an insight into the Power Rangers, something that I've never heard myself, and I'm really glad that you shared that with us today.
Oh, I hope I entertained, if nothing else.
And I'm sure all the patrons at the tavern will enjoy it as well. But
okay.
Mr. Rubio, thank you for taking time out of your schedule. You have yourself a good day, sir. And if you ever want to come back, just let me know.
Okay, thank you so much.